Welcome back into Basketball by Association, the All-Star Edition, except for 3 dumb games tonight. My name is Arky. Shea, that is Joel Secord. It's Joel. Basketball's done for the year. Now we get to finally do what we care about, which is slamming the dunks and finding out who the best point guard of selected point guards could be. Joel, this could be the greatest weekend of my life.
I am not sure what to make of that enthusiasm. Welcome to Basketball by Association.
Tell me that you're not the most excited about the best All-Star game ever. I mean, it's in Indiana, for crying out loud. Do you know what's in Indiana? Basketball. That's it. That is all of it. Larry Bird's going to be the three-point contest. I may have made that up, but he could have been if he wanted to, probably. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we've had lots of Indianapolis slander out of you, Mr. Arky Shea. It's not a bad place.
Slandering. I'm just saying Indiana, they love them some hoopage, right? They're desperate to have good teams.
Right.
Desperate for being like really fun. That's where it was all invented in their minds, so to speak. So listen, that's okay. No problem with Indiana in that respect. Let me ask you this. Least interesting thing about All-Star Weekend, the Celebrity All-Star Game or the three-point contest?
Oh, the Celebrity All-Star Game, 100%.
Really? You like after all these threes we keep seeing, more people shooting threes?
The three-point contest to a lot of people has arguably become, I'm trying to move away this vacuum cleaner that just started cleaning in the background. Yes, it is a robot.
That's okay. I have a 3-year-old child that's walking around in the background of this, so it's the loosey-goosey all-star version.
It is. The three-point competition to a lot of people is more exciting these days than the dunk competition, and it's been that way for a little bit. Are
you one of those people?
I think of them equally. I think the three-point competition is fun. I like that it has a larger field. It seems to move quicker these days than the slam dunk competition, although they've taken effort to try to fix that. You know, the dunk competition got into way too many problems with practice rounds and you get X number of tries and all that stuff. And that part of it was too much. The three-point competition, because it's, 8 players, 10 players, whatever it is, they got to move quickly, and the shooting moves quickly too. So, I'm okay with the three-point competition. Do I ever watch the Celebrity All-Star Game?
Yes.
No, I don't. And I'm an NBA diehard. If there's something really great from it, I'll catch up on the 10-second clip from social media. But it's one of those things that I don't give a crap. And I think that event is for people who don't give a crap about NBA basketball.
Okay, that's not fair. Joe, let me just tell you the celebrities in the All-Star Game. You tell me if you changed your mind after I tell you these, okay?
Okay.
This is, I'm guessing, Friday. I don't know. I think it's the Friday before anybody starts caring about the All-Star.
I can tell you right now I haven't changed my mind there. I saved you some time.
Okay, well, there is Micah Parsons, my Dallas Cowboys defensive end. Walker Hayes, Connor Daly, Kai Cenat, Annual Quincy Isaiah. Okay, we got to really work on what a celebrity is. Okay, that's on team.
I was going to say, we're stretching the definition of celebrity, and this is just making for great airtime content.
Well, the coaches for the team Shannon are Shannon Sharp and 50 Cent. And then the other team, here's your coaches, Stephen A. Smith, Lil Wayne, hey, buddy, and Asia Wilson. Those names we've heard of, right? Now, how about this? Here's your celebrity.
If your celebrity coaches are Shannon Sharp and Stephen A. Smith, that tells me all I need to know. That, it's just dumb. It's just dumb.
Okay, well, here's your game, and then we can get more forward, I guess, real basketball. Meta World Peace, heard of him? Yeah. Okay. Jack Ryan, heard of him? I haven't. Adam Blackstone.
Is it Jack Ryan played by Alec Baldwin, Harrison Ford, John Krasinski, or
I think
the other
it's
one?
A person named Jack Ryan. I don't think it's like that character that's in books and stuff.
Well, then I'm out.
Kwame Onwuchi. Jennifer Hudson, there's one, and AJ McLean. So if you're going to be at Lucas Oil Stadium on Friday, watch out. It is going to be phenomenal. Have you seen the setup for that, by the way?
The LED court is interesting. I'm not sure that I love it, but it follows in line with what they did during the in-season tournament, the NBA Cup, and some things they've been experimenting with. So if there's a time to get weird and experiment with something, the All-Star break is actually the time to do it. So I don't love the idea itself, but the timing of giving it a whirl, fine, go for it.
Okay, so I do want to give some actual NBA talk since we've been off for so long before we get out of here. It's not just going to be about the All-Star weekend, which is basically we get 3 games tonight and then no basketball for like a month. It feels like they just take
way too long. Yep,
they just take a really long time off. I think it's a full week to get off.
Yeah, and I get that the players, it is a good break in a long season, and there was already 4 or 5 days off, and to give them a couple extra ones, it makes sense. But yeah, it does become this weird midpoint, especially when we just got done with the trade deadline and everything, which is one of the high points of the season.
I wanted to ask you about what happened last night. The Celtics happened to just barely beat the Nets. Did you see this game?
I did not watch this game. I caught up on it afterwards.
Well, they only won by 50. So it's a short win over the Celtics, or by the Celtics, which was, by the way, Joe Mazzulla's 100th win. Worthy of celebration, huh? You doubted him. You doubted him, Joel, and now he's 100 wins. And he's like 1,500 away from the rim.
It helps when your opponent only has 2 players in double figures for the night, and one of those players in double figures was 10 points.
It does help with that. Now, I don't have the facts behind this, but the reason I wanted to bring this up is it feels like we've seen a lot of games like this year, like 35, 40, 45-point wins for teams, even 50. It feels like it's happened a lot this year, and maybe this is just me feeling it. Is it happening more now? Like, does it feel like that the haves and have-nots sometimes are a little more, there's a little more disparity between the two?
Anecdotally, I haven't noticed like a huge uptick in blowouts. I think, last year, for example, Oklahoma City at the beginning of the year got blown out by like 60 points, and it happens. I do think, however, that the bottom of both the Eastern Conference and the West, to a slightly lesser extent, are worse off this year than a lot of us thought. And so there is a disparity between the top and the bottom, whereas going into this year, I remember the narrative was this idea around better than ever parity in the NBA. But teams that we thought were going to be at least halfway respectable, like the Detroit Pistons, who, by the way, have won 3 out of their last 7. That's a monumental achievement for that team. Teams like Detroit were just, historically bad to start the season. Washington has been right there with them. Charlotte's been not much better. Toronto has really struggled, though a lot of people kind of saw that coming. And then out in the West, we understood that Portland would probably be pretty bad. We thought San Antonio, though, might be sniffing around the play-in tournament. That has not happened. Memphis, of course, was not supposed to be a sub-20 win team at this point of the year, even with Ja out originally on the suspension, but him coming back now, it's just not working. So there also have been a lot of nights, where there's guys that sit that are hurt, and it hasn't been the mass sitting events that we've seen.
Let me contextualize this with a number. I just found it out. There have been, so far, and we're like roughly halfway through, 54, 55 games into the season. There have been 27 games decided by at least 36 points this year. And that feels
that does feel a lot. Yeah.
That feels like an insane number. I don't have the historical number technically to look it up now. Maybe that's something for the next week when we get ready to go into the second half of the season. But that feels like a ton, including that 62-point game you're talking about with the Thunder back at the beginning of the year. So,
beginning of last year.
This was
last season for them that they got blown out. But yeah, there's been huge blowouts this year, last year, the last couple years. To me, the one anecdotally that jumps out more than the disparity of scores has been the last couple seasons when there has been a huge point outburst by a player. It all of a sudden gets contagious for like 2 weeks, and you have this massive amount of scoring outbursts and other guys are getting 50, 60 points trying to outdo each other. That I don't remember happening in previous years. And last year it was weird, but for this year to have it happen again, kind of around the same time of the season is like, okay, are people just like, I'm going to get 50 tonight, I'm going to get 60, and then teammates are just force feeding it? I don't know.
Yeah, by the way, that 62-point game was the Thunder over Portland. That was the January 11th this year. So,
oh, that was the game they won.
Yeah,
I was thinking
not the last year
yeah,
loss that you're talking about.
2 years ago, when OKC got absolutely blitzed.
Yeah. There's a little like, hey, are you? Thanks for coughing, buddy. It's like, are you guys even playing basketball? Because one of you doesn't look like you play basketball at all. Hey, I wanted to mention something about my New York Knicks. Have you seen what they're doing? They're all getting surgeries. They're all
trying to stay afloat. That's what they're doing.
But I'll tell you what, with Julius Randle and his injury, and now you got Anobi with his injury, and they're going to be out for the next few weeks or so. The Knicks more than just stayed afloat for the first several games after Julius Randle was out. They actually were still very, very good. Now, unfortunately, it's the Knicks are, they've lost 4 in a row, right? But they have built up a little bit of cushion during that stretch beforehand, where Jalen Brunson was unstoppable. Like, he was legitimately like one of the best. The Garden was chanting MVP to him after a game a few nights ago. So you know what I love about this New York Knicks team is that eventually I can look forward to them being all together again.
Someday that will happen. And Brunson has been huge. Dante DiVincenzo's playing the best basketball of his career, and all of a sudden has gone from a role player type of guy to one of the main scorers for the New York Knicks, one of the main secondary scorers. He's not going to retain that mantle when Julius Randle comes back, but it's great to see that is an option for them. You talked about Anunoby being out, but Isaiah Hartenstein has been out. Obviously, Mitchell Robinson's been out for much of the year already at this point. So for New York to be sitting in 4th place, despite all the injuries, is great. And you talk about, I think New York is the team out of all of the NBA squads that needs this week off around the All-Star break more than anybody else.
Because also they'll stop losing ground. Like that
right.
They'll stop losing ground. Because they're now 10 games back. And I don't think they're going to be able to compete for the 1 seed when it comes out of the East this year. It's just so much time, so much space that they would have to make up in the standings, and so little time basically to be able to do it. And Boston has not shown any signs of being anything other than really, really good for a long time. And I think that there's a chance with another week, which is another week for everybody to start getting healthier, as you say, you stop losing ground. I think there's an outside shot that could be a 2 seed, but I think 3 or 4 is probably where they end up before they go into the playoffs, which is really all they want to do is be able to host. By the way, shouldn't have been losing losers of 4 straight after being admittedly hosed out of a call a couple nights ago. Not a foul, especially when the officials afterwards like, yeah, it's incidental contact, no big deal. Oh, great. Can you just replay the down again? Like, are you able to just put everybody back together? No, you even looked at it in replay. What is going on? I tell you, I did love the fact that Tom Thibodeau, even afterwards, was like, or not afterwards, but like during the review, was like, I'm drawing up a play. We're gonna have time. We're gonna make sure of this. He was still like, we're gonna win this. Despite his weird beard, we're gonna win this. So I'll tell you this. I don't know, man. I think the Knicks I really wanted to talk about just because since we've last talked, they've been destroyed with a couple of big injuries that are guys that are coming out.
You got to be really happy with the acquisition of Bojan Bogdanovic, I would assume, and Alec Burks to a lesser extent, because what New York got them for was a bag of spare parts, really. Yeah. I mean, no disrespect to Quentin Grimes, who I was surprised they cut bait with, but you got to send something of value. But to get Bojan Bogdanovic, who is one of the better, I think, 3rd wheel scorers, 4th wheel scorers, and a guy who really can light it up when he's on. And then Alec Burks has been a good pro over the last few seasons, and he's been in New York before. He showed some scoring prowess in Detroit out of necessity, but he's not a bad defender either. Again, just a good veteran to have in that rotation. We knew the OG Anunoby trade That one, I think everybody looked at and went, yeah, that's a fair price. It sucks to get rid of RJ Barrett. Nobody wants to see Emmanuel quickly out of a Knicks uniform. But Anunoby is going to be a good fit. He gives them and hindsight being 2020, that's been rewarded in spades. Anunoby is an absolute great fit. But to get Bogdanovich for the price that they got him, I'm looking around going, if that's all it took to get Bogey and Alec Burks out of Detroit, where were the rest of the contenders banging down the door for him? Because he is very helpful. Yes, overexposed if he's your second or third wheel. But when he's going to be a rotation scorer, oh my goodness.
I'll tell you this, and then we can move on from them. I think the biggest sign that showed me is that the Knicks are in. The Knicks are fully in for the season to be able to compete. That even though they had a couple of really unfortunate injuries that are going to take a huge chunk out of the season, a month plus for each of these guys is not nothing. At least those injuries are happening basically at the same time, and the timeline will kind of sort of coincide where they'll be roughly back around the same time. But the Knicks are like, listen, we don't want this to sort of torpedo us into the 7, the 8, or play in, something like that. We don't want to be looking we know what we got. We got a really good team. We got a really good set of people here when we're all completely healthy. We need to make sure that while we're waiting for everyone to come back, we don't just sit and twiddle our thumbs. And so, I think that's what I loved about it.
I'll tell you what, you and I at the beginning of the season were pretty bullish on the Knicks. I think it's the first time ever since we've been doing shows together that we were both excited about them at the same time. And one of the things that really stood out was the Knicks' usable depth this year, which was a little bit of a problem last season and definitely over the previous few seasons. And now you look at that usable depth, it's absolutely having to be used on a necessity because of those injuries. But when fully healthy, you're 4 guys off the bench because, let's be real, that's all Thibodeau is going to play, if that. But you're 4 guys off the bench, Bojan Bogdanović, Josh Hart, Alec Burks, and Isaiah Hartenstein, with Miles McBride and Precious Achiuwa in reserve behind them. That's fantastic. That is really, and it's not just the names, it's not just that they're all veterans and they've been through their own separate playoff runs and big moments or have been starters for a little bit before, played bigger roles. But it's just that they all fit together too. And they seem to fit into a Thibodeau style that has evolved at least enough over the last couple seasons to be workable in the modern NBA. And then you have the ISO ability of Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, the connective ability of OG Anunoby, and then hopefully Dante DiVincenzo and Mitchell Robinson being able to do their things as very, very solid starters at this point.
Yeah, I think there's a lot still to be had for this New York Knicks team. So
got to get everybody healthy in time, but absolutely.
But look, if there's no Anunoby and then there's no Randle, there's no Knicks competing this year. But if you could get at least Randle back, Anunoby, they could keep I think with Randle, no Anunoby, I think that could be a team that surprises somebody to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. With only Anunoby, with Randle, I think that's a team that has a shot. So excuse me, with Randle and Anunoby, the other way, I think that's a shot that the team that could get to the NBA Finals. I feel bullish, but I know Boston's looked really, really good, but I'm not really afraid of Milwaukee at this point. I'm not really afraid of Philadelphia at this point.
Cleveland's hot, but probably not afraid of them given the series last year.
No, the Knicks punched them in the face last year, so there's nothing other than maybe Boston, obviously, which would be a great series.
Indiana would be a great series too.
Indiana would be a lot of fun. That could be 6 very crazy fun games to watch, maybe 7. Yeah.
But you like New York's chances in all of those series, which is that's saying something, right? You like their chances. And if
you get both the guys back, Anunoby and Randle, then for sure I'm picking them to beat everybody. Yeah. That's non-biased, right? That way we can get through to see the Minnesota Timberwolves in the finals, and you and I are going to a game or two. So, probably have to go to Minnesota because New York will be a little expensive.
Yeah. We can't put out 5th mortgages on our houses.
Not yet. Soon, though. Soon. I did find a lot really sort of super interesting to talk about over these last couple of weeks as far as teams individually, because what we've seen a lot, especially in the West, is a lot of a lot of the same. I'm impressed that Minnesota and Oklahoma City are still there, 1-2 this whole time. This isn't
Clippers gave them a run though. Clippers were
the
sniffing
Clip.
around
Look,
that
they're like
number one
half a game
seed.
back, right? So like they're
Mhm.
half a game back of like second, which is OKC at this point. Like I think the Clippers are great. I think the Clippers are my surprise right now. They're my big surprise because I did not expect this to fit this way and to work this way right now. Get to
Neither
the
of us
playoffs different, but they have been really stellar.
neither of us expected it, and it's time, I think, and this has been coming for a while, for us to give the mea culpa to James Harden. We were among the pack with everybody else rooting for that to fail. James Harden has racked up so much bad karma over the last couple of years, and when he got to LA and it looked like it was just flaming out immediately, we all kind of snickered and said, see, ah, ha, ha, ha. I think the turning point, though, for the Clippers belongs to Russell Westbrook. When he said this is not working, I will move to the bench. I will make the sacrifice to do that. And I think it set this precedent where Harden being there trying to fit in with everybody. You see Kawhi Leonard, I don't know if it's being fine because we never know what his emotion is, but operating with fewer touches and yet still being very efficient. Paul George is still, himself for better or worse. The team's a little bit small up front, but they are so athletic at all the wing positions. Ivica Zubats is a great, solid starting center. The bench is deep enough. It's a very veteran-laden team. And look, the Clippers have been trying to open this window for, it feels like, the last 3-4 seasons, right? And it kept slamming shut because of injuries. Kawhi Leonard, knock on wood, has missed 4 games total this year. They've all been planned absences as far as I know, or a minor injury. Paul George has not missed all that much time either. Zubats, I think, has been the leading game misser for the Clippers. So you talk about health being this secret sauce, and the Clippers finally this year have a talented veteran-laden team like they have the past few seasons, but everybody has been available enough to keep the momentum going and turn around the fact that they had such a slow start to the year.
Yeah, I've been really impressed, and like you said, the mea culpa is on me definitely, and I'm not going to put that on you.
Same.
You can
No,
take the mea culpa,
I was rooting for that to fail.
and we still have some time for it to fail, right? There's still a chance for like somebody's
the playoffs when James Harden has to score points and not disappear. That's going to be a question.
I'll be honest with you, man. I still don't want to fully believe in the Clippers. Like there's still that reservation in the back of my head, but they're third in the West and they're a game and a half back. Do you know what the third place team in the East is out of first place? They're 8 games back. Like the West is tight. And that's why I give so much credit to Minnesota and to OKC. And by the way, Denver's
and
a game
Thunder,
back of those at 4th. That's a world championship team, by the way. Like that's a heated race that's been heated all year long. And I give so much credit to those top 2 teams for not wilting so far. And then give credit to the Clippers for putting it together and getting the Harden trade and for it working out. But the West has been wild, man.
Minnesota has split their series 2 apiece with the Thunder, and Minnesota has spanked the Clippers in both of their matchups so far this year. Like dominated them.
And I think Minnesota is like the best in the West on the road, if I'm not mistaken. Like I think they're one of the top 2 at least in the West. Like on the road, like they're really good at home, but on the road they're pretty good too.
They're 19-11 away from home, and that is the most road wins so far of any team. I think percentage-wise, there might be 1 or 2 that are sniffing around that. New Orleans sitting at 17-12 is awfully close. But yeah, Minnesota 19-5 at home on the year. And a lot of their wins, this is what's really frustrating as a Wolves fan. Most of their wins have come against the really good teams. What they have had a problem with is blowing big leads. That was a huge problem for them last year, blowing big leads against lesser competition, whether that was the Raptors early in the season or, Charlotte just recently. There's the game where Karl Anthony Towns puts up 60 points and they lose, despite having a 20-point lead. So they've had a handful of those games. And if Minnesota cleans that up, you're looking at them with 5 more wins on the season easily if they don't lose that focus and those big leads.
So as we're sort of looking at basically the rearview mirror for the first half of the season, And we'll maybe next week we'll talk about going forward what we think. What's been the biggest disappointment for you for the first half? Player wise, team wise, anything like that? Because I'll tell you who my biggest disappointment in the entire NBA is so far.
Yeah, go
And
for it. And then I've got one or two for each conference.
that's Memphis, man. Memphis. Look, I know you started off with not having a Ja Morant, and that was a
Mhm.
big deal, but they were so bad. Like they were unwatchable at times during that first 25 game stretch. And then Ja comes back and they're
And they
great for
start
like
winning
3 days
immediately. They start winning
immediately.
immediately.
And then he gets hurt and they have all their injuries. That's the biggest issue. And I know there's reasons for it. I'm not saying they're a bad organization or a bad group of fellas out there, shooting hoops around, but that's been the biggest issue. I thought they would tread water for the first 25 games probably, and then when Ja came back, they'd be able to rocket to the top four of the West. I thought they were good enough too, and they've just not been able to have any of that happen. Injuries, the suspensions, and then just some terrible play just in general. That roster is not built for depth. They're not built to be able to sustain really any type of loss to their first part of their lineup, and they've been obliterated to the first part of their lineup. So that's been, I think, the biggest disappointment in the whole NBA for me.
Yeah, and missing Marcus Smart for as long as they have, and
Yeah,
Derrick Rose for as long as they have. There's been others besides Ja, but it certainly is Ja is the main issue there. For me, while we're at the bottom of the standings, it's been a major disappointment how few games Detroit and San Antonio have been able to win. Coming into this season, neither were expected to be playoff teams, but in both cases, I think with the sheer amount of talent and the good coaching that they have and the fact that they have been developing their young guys, it's not like this is the first year of the rebuild for either of these franchises. This is like year 3, year 4 with a lot of these young guys playing together. I think they can be sniffing around the play-in tournament, and they both just were awful to start the year. They have since gotten a little bit of momentum. San Antonio is still only 2-8 in their last 10, despite the fact
yeah,
that Wemby looks as
11
good as
total wins
advertised.
though. Yeah,
Right.
you're
And
right. Yeah.
Detroit 8 wins, 3-7 in their last 10, like I mentioned before. Neither of those two teams should have been at the bottom of their conference. That should have been reserved for somebody like Portland and Washington, Charlotte, what have you.
You're right.
I think further up the list, it's been really disappointing for the Lakers. That's an obvious one, but I picked them to win the championship. Don't count them out yet, but it's hard to believe in them when you look at the quality at the top of the Western Conference. But if they're healthy, they get into the playoffs. You've got that veteran-laden team and all those different very intriguing parts that we looked at with LA, and similar things can be said with Golden State. There's no way that either of those two teams should be sitting at 9th and 10th at this point of the season. That is a massive disappointment. At the same time, nobody really wants to see either of those two teams in the first round, much less the second round, because that would mean said team has found some momentum that has escaped them. And we have seen teams like the Miami Heat, veteran-laden teams that just kind of limped through a regular season, and then all of a sudden they're here to play. We've also seen those teams not be able to flip the switch in the past, but
I think that's what the Lakers
they're
want. I think the Lakers are just like, get us in, and we'll be able to. Even though they look really, really good at the beginning of the year, I think I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I might be wrong on that. I feel like the more I say it, the more I am wrong on that. I think they need to be. I don't think they're gonna. I think they want to avoid the play as much as possible. Put it that way.
The most recent disappointment, the one that still I think stings the most for me, is Milwaukee. You fire Adrian Griffin when you're sitting with an identical record to the top team in the West. And yes, you're sitting in second at the same time, whatever. Doc Rivers comes in, and you're not only do you go from not winning as many games as you were supposed to, but now you're losing a whole bunch of games. They're 4-6 in their last 10, searching for momentum. Yes, the defense has looked a little bit better, but all of a sudden Damian Lillard doesn't look comfortable again. Think of how tough of a position that is when you are a guy who played a decade plus for a different team, most of that for Terry Stott, so most of that with one coach. and then you come to your first new franchise ever, where you're going to be a second wheel for the first time ever in your career. You've got all that pressure and all that acclamation. It's a brand new coach that you are playing for, and said coach gets fired before the All-Star break. And now you have another new coach and a new system to try to, take care of right down the stretch of a playoff run, and you had been sitting in second place. I would be really frustrated if I was Dame. And if I'm Giannis, I would go, what kind of dysfunction is this? Unless it was those two who were really in the ears of management to go, Adrian Griffin's not cutting it, he's not ready, which very well could have happened.
I feel like you should put some respect on the name Doc Rivers, who is your NBA All-Star Game coach for the D's. Okay,
that might be the most disappointing thing of all. Thank you for bringing that up. Actually, that might be the most disappointing thing at all. Either Adrian Griffin gets to come back and coach that game, or the support staff for the Bucks do, and Doc Rivers doesn't, or just give it to JB Bickerstaff from Cleveland or someone else. Come on.
To me, at least Doc Rivers acknowledges that it's ridiculous.
Yes.
So at least he acknowledges it's ridiculous, but
he won't give up the honor of doing
exactly. Like what? My thing is exactly with you. I know this is the
Does
way
he
the
get
NBA...
the bonus? Does he get the coaching bonus? Because there's money on the line for the coaching staff. So if he gets the bonus out of that and Adrian Griffin doesn't, that's BS, man.
That's an interesting question. Because even if he does, he at least got to pay that out to somebody, right? Like he's got to send that. He's got to Venmo that to somebody else.
Cut that check to Adrian. Go buy him a Bentley or something. Like you gotta give the man that money. That
you
ain't
think the
Doc
coaching
Rivers
bonus
money.
for this is enough to buy a Bentley?
No,
okay.
I used one.
It's like it's the All-Star game, brother.
Yeah.
I know the NBA rules are what they are for this, and this is sort of a unique situation that it happened and all. But even then, if you're the NBA, you're like, okay, we get it. We have to adjust it for this. It can't just be like, them's the rules. Like, you know what the rules are there for. Not for guys to be not for guys to be fired like 6 games before the All-Star game and then still be in position. If you're fired for the All-Star game, most of the time you're not in a position to be the All-Star game coach because you know what? You're not a good team.
I honestly don't even like the rule that says if you coached it last year, you can't coach it again.
I don't like that either.
Like, what's the problem with Joe Mazzulla and his staff being in first place in the Eastern Conference again, getting to go? Like, we wouldn't have any of this problem unless the Bucks had been sitting in first, and then one would think they wouldn't have fired Adrian Griffin. But, like, if it's not going to be Joe Mazzulla, then JB Bickerstaff has done a really nice job in Cleveland over the last couple of years. Yes, they've had an influx of talent and a development of their guys that were in-house too, but, like, he's done a really nice job, and the Cavs are sitting there contending. Right, give it to him.
I'm okay with that. Listen, if you're Doc Rivers, you got to say, like, let's talk to the NBA like that. I can't do this. You're putting me in a weird spot. Like, this is a weird spot. Like, he was basically the coach before he played, like, before he started coaching for the All-Star game. Like, all they really had to do, I think, was it was like he didn't even have to win a game. Like, they just had to have someone else lose, basically, for him to confirm that it's so weird, such a weird spot.
Better comedy and better karma would be Doc Rivers just going, I won't coach the game, but my son Austin Rivers gets to coach the game, and we get to continue the Nepo baby stuff with awesome. Austin Rivers, which is not fair to him. He's tried to get away from that. But.
All right, we got a few more minutes here before we get to head out. I want to ask about your surprises, positively, and when it comes to the NBA for the first half, and maybe if you want to throw in someone who you think is your MVP right now, I think that would be fair to go at this point. Who's the biggest surprise positively? Because I do like to give those laurels out when I can too.
Nobody expected Minnesota sitting in first. We expected them to be better. We expected the fit to either work well enough that they were going to be in the playoff field or that they were going to have to blow things up between Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns by the deadline. And it's worked. Karl Anthony Towns has fit better over this season. Not perfectly, but to me, I think the bigger surprise out west, even more than Minnesota, even more than OKC, has been the Dallas Mavericks, who I picked to be near the bottom of the West. We thought that was a disaster roster waiting. And the roster as originally constituted got off to a really hot start, Luka and Kyrie worked things out before some injuries began to set in. And then as the injuries have piled up here and they started to lose a little momentum, you saw Dallas with an aggression at the trade deadline that went, no, we are in on competing. We are in on taking this as far as we can. And we're going to go get more perfect lob partners for Luka Doncic and more guys that can finish a play, which has really been, the issue for the Dallas Mavericks is that Luka, like Nikola Jokic, would rather be a play initiator. Yes, he can finish plays, and Luka's even better than Jokic is, honestly, when it comes to that. But he would rather be the setup man. And you had Kyrie Irving and you had Tim Hardaway Jr. as guys that you could reliably have finish a play and maybe even generate some looks themselves. But really, that was it. Derek Lively comes out of the woodwork as a rookie. Josh Green has been, I think ascending on his development curve faster than they expected. Dante Exum has been a usable NBA player, which, he's been out of the league for a couple of years. But for them to then go get Daniel Gafford, who just plays above the rim. I mean, that guy plays above the rim, and nobody really knows that because he was on some lousy Bulls teams. He's been on some lousy Wizards teams. He's perfect. He's the slightly more veteran version of Derek Lively. And PJ Washington is a guy who can get up, but really is a pick and pop type of player. And is a nice defender too. They got them both for reasonable prices. It solidifies that starting lineup. I loved those moves. I love that Dallas is sending that signal to Luka that says we will continue shuffling the deck until we get this right. We're not going to waste your time here in Dallas. So they've been the biggest pleasant surprise out west. Out east, take your pick. Cleveland sitting in second, though that may just be a product of other teams struggling. New York being as solid as they've been, maybe that's not a surprise because we kind of called that. But it probably is the Pacers. That surprised a lot of people, but not you and me, Arky Shea, because we picked them to be exactly where they are right now, which was sitting around the 5th or 6th seed, and that was going to be a huge bump. And then for them to go out and get Pascal Siakam for what they did, and he's been a seamless fit with Halliburton. We've said it over and over. Indy is fun this year. They are fun, but they are a good team too, and they've got a nice bedrock to build off of. Halliburton's super young. Siakam's young enough. Miles Turner isn't old yet. Aaron Nesmith now moved into the starting lineup. Remember, that was a lottery pick by the Celtics. Looking like a really solid starter. Ben Mathurin, a lottery pick. They got some weapons, and they've got some upside that they probably will not hit this year. But over the next couple of seasons, Indiana's going to be mentioned in the same sentence as the Celtics and the Bucks and the Knicks, the Sixers, the Cavs. It is a really hot top 6 in the East. And then you still got Miami floating around there going, don't forget about us, because as soon as you do, we're going to kill you.
Stop bringing in Miami. And I'll keep this brief. My overall just big surprise is OKC. I'm surprised they've sustained. I really am. We've seen this Minnesota group essentially be really good before. I did not expect OKC to be this good this year.
They look veteran young. And
you know why? Because my first half MVP, that's Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. That guy without him, that team doesn't run the way it does, and that team's running really nice right now, averaging over 30 points a game. He was I think was he second in scoring last year? He didn't lead the league in scoring last year, did he?
He did not. No, but he was up in the top 3 almost all season. Yeah.
Yeah, he was phenomenal last year. The fact that he sustained, and this year is another great season for him. To say that guy is going to be someone to pay attention to. It's going to be a problem for teams for the next few seasons. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is my MVP for the first half of the season. He's been great, and that OKC team has been great. And again, one of those teams that were like super fun to watch.
What's so great about Shea, and this is where he is similar to Giannis or Joel Embiid, is that he puts up these top 5 scoring numbers, and Shea's sitting in 3rd right now behind Embiid and behind Luka. But unlike somebody like Luka, and even somewhat like Nikola Jokic, a couple of the other, and Jason Tatum too, who are all solid enough defenders, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is a really good defensive player.
Great
a really good two-way player. He's averaging, what is it on the season here? Let me pull this up. He's averaging 2 steals a game and a block per game, in addition to 30 points per game, 6.5 assists, 5.5 boards. He's shooting 37% from downtown. This is the big kicker. 55% from the floor
Oof.
on the season. Like you cannot keep him in those long arms out of the lane. And once he gets there, he's getting to his spots like a Jason Tatum does, where there's nothing you can really do about it to keep him from getting to those efficient kill zones. But then on that defensive end, like you said, he's so good in the passing lanes, as are all of the Thunder. Like that's where the veteran part to me really comes out. Yeah, they execute their offense, they run a devastating fast break. They defend on a string. If you can get young guys like that to defend at the level that they have been, and Shea is leading the charge, ooh, yeah, the Thunder are surprising. I think we all thought, we've seen this coming. We're like, yeah, this is a good group. Someday this is going to be scary. We just didn't see it happening this soon.
Yeah, they're not going to win it all this year, but
Probably not.
They may in the next couple. They may be a team that finds finds Oklahoma City back in deep playoff runs for the next several years, which will be
they're gonna beat handily, I think, at least one veteran team in the playoffs where you go, oh, the Thunder aren't ready, this other team is there, and I think the Thunder are going to run somebody out of the building in 5 games.
Oh yeah, for that first round matchup, probably. I would agree.
Probably could be in the second round. Who knows? But I mean, it's coming. Like, this team is legit.
Yeah, I think the semis are probably the ceiling for OKC. I think there's just too much depth at the top of the West to be able to get completely through it. But who knows, man? They may find themselves in the West Finals, and then it'll be all matchup dependent. All right, Joe, that's going to do it for us. Another wonderful basketball association. When we come back, there will be no basketball played, but we'll start talking about the second half of the season and why the Knicks are clearly the favorite to win it all. Until then, Joel, what? Don't scoff at that.
I'm just looking forward to dedicating 35 minutes of a celebrity game breakdown. A recap.
Listen. 50 Cent is a coach. He deserves the time. That's what Doc Rivers should be coaching. Celebrity game, not if he wants to coach a game in the All-Star game. It's the celebrity game, not the actual one that we'll see on Sunday. All right, Joe, that's going to do it for us. Say goodbye to the good people.
Goodbye, good people. We'll see you next time.